This is the Initiates Podcast. I am your host and guide, Natalie Grace. Join me for an enlightening exploration of spirituality, mysticism, and awakening. It's my honor to journey with you. Hello, my friends, and welcome to the Initiates Podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. Today, I'm going to be sharing an interview. I recently spoke to an amazing woman named Colleen Kersey, who is an animal communicator. If you have listened to this podcast before, you'll probably know how important animals and pets are to me. I am on a farm and I have a deep, deep soul bond with all of my animals, but especially my little kitty Bread. And when I came into connection with Colleen, I immediately knew that I wanted to speak to her about her incredible gift of being able to communicate with animals and pets especially, and learn about what this incredible purpose and job is all about. So Colleen is based in France and runs a business called Authentic Pathways. She is an animal communicator as well as a Reiki practitioner and a tarot teacher like me. And on today's episode, we talk about what it is to communicate with pets. She shares her journey to discovering her gift of being able to communicate with animals. And I was really interested to learn what she's learned about animals and humans and the connection, and also just the broader nature of existence, because animals are so wise and they're such incredible teachers. And so I really wanted to learn what she's been taught speaking multidimensionally with so many pets and being the conduit between the pet and the guardian. We explore soul agreements that we have with our pets and the roles they play in our lives and our soul missions. And she shares some of the biggest wisdom teachings that she's received from the pets that she's connected with so far. It is such a wonderful episode, and I was really inspired to share it this week because things are pretty heavy in the world at the moment. And I always find that no matter what's happening in our consensus reality, when I drop into nature, especially when it's in the present moment with an animal or with my chickens or my cat Bread, it's so healing and beautiful. They really teach us so much about what it is to live in the present, and to be able to understand them on a deeper level is such an incredible gift, and that is a gift I wanted to share with you today. So if you're feeling the heaviness that's existing in the world, in the collective energetic field right now, you're not alone. There's some really heavy stuff happening right now, but take a moment to cherish the beautiful pets and animals in your life, even if they're just the birds and insects that visit your garden, or the little spider that hangs out in your bathroom with you. Whichever creatures are around you in your little world, take a moment to be present with them, because they're such an amazing part of this incredible, beautiful world that we live in. Such wonderful teachers. They hold so much wisdom. This conversation is amazing. It's multidimensional. It really, while we don't talk about the subject of earth magic, it feels like the magic of earth is explored here, and it's also quite cosmic. The way Colleen works is really unique and cool and interesting. So I really hope you enjoy this episode. If you would like to work with Colleen, she does talk towards the end of the episode about how you can connect with her. But of course, I'll pop all of those details into the show notes. And enjoy the episode and receiving this beautiful animal wisdom. Colleen, thank you so much for joining me today on The Initiates.
Lovely to be here. Thank you for inviting me, Natalie.
I'm so intrigued to speak with you today because you are, from what I understand, an animal communicator.
I am indeed. Yes, I'm very excited to tell you how that works too.
Awesome. I can't wait to explore that. I have a deep connection with animals myself. I've always been around cats. Ever since I was a little girl, when I think back to my childhood and what I loved and my hobbies, there were just always kittens around and always kittens finding me. And this relationship with cats has continued on to current day. I've got such a deep connection with my current kitty, Bread, and it's expanded into me and my very late 30s, moving from the city, always been a city girl, to a regional part of where I live in Australia with my partner to take over a farm. And it was so new to us, but I've learned so much on this journey working with cattle. So I don't even like to call them cattle because it's a commodity term. They're beautiful cows, these gorgeous cows. And I've started to care for sheep recently, which has been such a journey. And I've got some chickens as well.
My son of Full House.
Yeah. I've become acquainted with birds through that. And when I think of all of my best and greatest teachers in my life, animals are right up there. The chickens have taught me a lot about birds, and I have a very deep connection and love for birds now. But I'm wondering, Colleen, could you tell me about how your connection with animals developed? Did it start in childhood for you?
I would love to say that it did. We often hear about stories, people who were able to talk to their childhood animal and they discovered that they could understand it. And I don't have such a history. Mine happened purely by accident. I wasn't expecting it at all. I wasn't prepared for it. In fact, I didn't even know it existed. I also practice Reiki, and I was doing a distance Reiki session this was only about 4 years ago, with a cat in America. And I was deep, in the zone with this cat. And all of a sudden, this really vivid picture of tall bay windows with these long mustard curtains and, a window seat with a cushion, really detailed, popped into my head. And it took me so much by surprise that I kind of snapped out the zone thinking, oh my gosh, had I nodded off to sleep, I thought perhaps I'd started to snooze. But nonetheless, when I reported back to the owner of the cat at the end of the session, I'm really glad I did mention it because I nearly didn't. And I said to her, gosh, this really strange thing happened. And I described what had appeared. And she said, oh my gosh, Colleen, you've just described our lounge window, and the window seat is where the cat likes to sleep. And I was like, what? What do you mean? And she goes, well, the mustard curtains. We have these long mustard curtains, and that's the cat's favorite sleeping spot. And I remember being, trying to be very professional and go, oh, right, okay, well, no problem then, hope the cat's okay. And kind of disconnected from the call going, what on earth just happened? And I mean, I always jot down notes after Reiki sessions. And I'm also glad I did that because, I fear if I hadn't have done that, I perhaps would have dismissed it. But something niggled. And I remember going onto Google thinking I was completely insane. And I just Googled, can animals talk to people? Thinking I was having a mad moment. But sure enough, all this information came back about interspecies communication. And I was like, oh my God, it's a thing. People can do it. And I just threw myself into, websites, YouTube channels. I bought books. I did reading. I listened. I subscribed to every single newsletter that I could possibly find. And I just did as much self-study as I possibly could. And it was great, but there still wasn't a framework, if you like. I had all the knowledge and I understood how it worked and I understood that it was possible and what you could do with it, but I didn't really know how to structure it. And as you know, I teach tarot as well, and I was teaching a a class, and there was an Australian lady in the class, and we always chat about, hi, my name is blah blah, and I come from here, and this is why I want to learn tarot. And she said she was a professional animal communicator, and I was like, oh my god! And you know how there's always these signs from the universe, isn't there? And I just thought, well, this is it. For months, years even, I'd been doing all this personal research, and here there was this lady who was doing it professionally. So I did a course with her, and she was the one who explained to me, who gave me the framework of how to prepare myself mentally before a session, how to actually visually connect with the animal, and how to interpret the various ways that the messages came through. And from that, I just did case studies, friends, family, unsuspecting people. I just did as many case studies as I could. And when it became clear that, okay, this is actually working, this is a thing, I decided to go professional. So yes, it was purely accidental, but I'm very, very grateful, because it's such an incredible privilege. I still pinch myself, every time I do a session. When you kind of get to the end of the session and you think, nah. Sometimes you get things come through and you just think, really? But I've learned that it's not up to me to understand what's coming through. I just have to relay that message back to the people. And 10 times out of 10, the people go, oh my gosh, it's really funny that you should say that, because, and then I think, oh, amazing. Mind blowing. It really is mind blowing.
Wow. That's so special, because as animal people, we often sit there sometimes just wishing we could understand what our pets were trying to tell us. So to have this,
exactly right.
This gift just arise for you, that's amazing. So did you ever have any kind of psychic abilities that you were aware of before that? Like, you spoke about doing Reiki, so you're obviously attuned to energy. But what about like that clairvoyance that had appeared? Was that something new to you?
Totally new, Natalie, totally new. Even the Reiki was purely accidental. I've had a very rigid religious background that didn't embrace spirituality. So none of this was really part of my growing up. And I've lost track of time, 8 or 9 years ago now, before we came to France, we came here to visit my husband's mother, who'd been living here for a while. And we were at a social function, and I met a man who had spent a time with a shaman in his past. Very interesting man, one of those that you just want to sit for hours and talk to. And we had this kind of joke, he forgot my name, and I was being playful, so I kind of put my hand out to shake his hand, and I reintroduced myself. It was kind of like a jokey thing. But as soon as he touched my hand, he got all like serious, and he goes, "You have healing hands. It's a gift. You mustn't waste it." And I was like, my God, how much has this man had to drink? But of course it wasn't, because I was dismissing it immediately. But somebody doesn't say something like that to you, and you just forget it. And I remember going back to England and thinking, healing hands, what's that all about? And of course I Googled that. Where would I be without Google? I Googled that, and I got all the information about Reiki, and I just thought, great, let's do it. So that was kind of the catalyst, but no, prior to that, nothing really. I guess it was my time.
Yeah. And I love that you were so open to just exploring these hints from the universe. Some people would meet that shaman and just be like, well, I don't know what he's on. Like you said, he must have had a lot to drink. My hand's healing. I've never done healing, but you took those cues and were brave enough to explore. It's really cool.
Yeah, it was amazing. I mean, the Reiki was a fantastic start, and even just the experiences that I had with that were incredible. So but I guess that was the starting point, really.
Beautiful. So how is it that you connect with the animals, or the animals connect with you?
Well, I would say, you see, it started to happen the other way around. But what I would say is, I connect to the animal. I ask. You always ask permission, because there's nothing worse than you're sitting at a cafe and someone just plonking themselves down at the table and start talking to you, right? So it's always customary to ask permission. So I guess I connect to the animal. And then once I get that permission, and that's done purely on an energetic basis, I kind of present the idea of talking to the animal and them sharing things. And then I kind of weigh the energetic feel of a yes, and I weigh the energetic feel of a no. I've only ever once had a no, and it was because it was in America and the dog was sleeping. It was really odd. I remember thinking, oh gosh, I wonder if it wasn't. It was like, oh, can you come back tomorrow, please? I'm snoozing. So thankfully, I've never had an animal which has, refused to talk to me just out of no thanks, I'm not interested. They all are very, very happy to share. So I would connect to the animal. And I do it via sort of a visualization. I do sort of lots of chakra balancing beforehand, make sure that I'm calm. I do lots of breathing exercises. And then I have a visualization technique that I use. And then I ask the animal to then join me. So I guess I present myself as an open, right, I'm here, ready, willing, and able to chat if you're up for it. And then they appear in my mind's eye, and then I take it from there. So I hope that answers the question. I felt like I was rambling a bit at the end there.
Great. So it's more of a clairvoyant thing for you that you see, or do you hear messages from them as well?
I get it in all shapes and forms. Initially, when I connect, it's always a clairvoyant thing. The animal appears in my mind's eye, and from that, I can immediately understand what the animal's character is. So that's the first part of all my readings is I say to the animal, well, actually, no, the first part is I get kind of a general energetic feel about the animal. And then the first thing I say is, tell me about yourself. And I can see that from how they act in the photo or how they present themselves. Sometimes they're upright and the tail's going. Sometimes they're lounging around. Sometimes they're right in my face. But when I start asking them the questions, that will then change how I get the answers, and I get them through all of the clairs. And some of those are really enjoyable and some of them not so much. So when I first started, for instance, I asked an animal if they could share with me what their food tasted like. Because I was trying to establish whether they enjoyed their food, right? So I was like, do you enjoy your food? What does it taste like? So they showed me, and I got the taste, and I was like, okay, that was horrible. I won't do that again.
Wow.
So now I've had to change the way I ask the question. So I ask the question more like, do you get a sense of enjoyment from eating that food? And then I kind of get that, like a yes feeling or a no feeling, rather than getting the taste of, dried beef kibble or something.
Wow. So in your conversations with the animals or the pets, is it mostly driven by specific concerns that I don't like to use the word owners, but
I know.
Do they come to you with specific concerns that they have worries or curiosities about the animal, or is it more of an open invitation for the animal to tell you what's happening with them?
It's a little bit of both. I think it's sometimes easier for the I also struggle with the word owner, although it slips out of habit. I tend to more use the term guardian. So I'll just say guardian, right? So sometimes the guardian will come to me with specific, like you said, curiosities. We've just moved house. Is the animal happier in the house? Are they okay with the garden? Do they need extra stimulation in the garden? Do they need more toys? Do they enjoy their food? Do they get on okay with the cat or the dog or the chickens or the sheep or whatever? So there are curiosities, yes. Sometimes people struggle to come up with those questions. And then that's when I would kind of just ask a little bit about the animal, how it came to be with the people, the situation that they're living in. And then from that, I can say, right, okay, well, if it's a rescue animal, let's perhaps see if it's willing to share a little bit about its past and if that's affecting anything in its current life and how we can make its life more comfortable. So we can ask it that, and we can ask it perhaps if it feels safe and if it's happy with everyone. So I kind of help them compile the questions. Quite often as we're doing now, as you're having a conversation, other questions will come through because you're having a conversation. Yep. If an animal presents something and I'm like, oh, okay, that's interesting, what does that mean? Or how do you feel about that? Then, it's a conversation. Yeah. But saying that at the end of every conversation, I will always say to the animal, is there anything you would like to say? Because I like to say it's a conversation, not an interrogation. So it's not like I arrive and, ask them their questions and go, right, thanks very much, off I go. I always give them a chance to have their say at the end. And sometimes they do, and sometimes they just, they're just happy to have said their piece and, they're happy to end the session. But at least they're given the chance to say what they needed to say.
Are they ever surprised that you're in their field or super excited to have a human to talk to?
I have had one or two animals that have kind of gone, wait, what? I do. I mean, I'm generally quite an excitable person anyway, and I'm kind of conscious of that. So I do try to calm myself a lot before I connect with an animal, because I also don't know some animals are completely comfortable with me being there. I've had animals that have gone, great, I've been waiting for you all morning, like they were expecting me somehow. Others which are really excited and are like bouncing around because they've got so much to say that they're like, right, Colleen, get your pen and pencil already. I'm ready. But others I have connected to where I've literally had to sit with them for 15 minutes, even sometimes sharing a bit of Reiki, so that they just understand that I'm not there in a threatening way and I'm not there to interrogate them. I'm there to allow them, to give them a chance to speak. And generally, that works, because I would never force an animal to talk. With rescues, for instance, if people want to know about the animal's past life, sometimes they'll give some information, and then I'll just feel a really kind of rigidity, and then I would get back to the people and say, look, they've shared this about their past, but actually, we don't always want to talk about our past when it's not great, right? So we kind of leave it at that. So it's a combination of both.
Yeah. And I think many of us have rescue animals and are aware often that they have traumatic backgrounds. How do you understand that animals generally deal with trauma?
Each animal is different in my experience. So I've had some animals who, and I guess it's the same with people, isn't it? I've had some animals who have really been affected by it, and I can feel even from their energy that they feel fragile. They feel hesitant, and they feel almost skittish. But you can tell from the answers to the questions that, that as we go through the conversation, that what they're looking for is a sense of security and a sense of stability that will enable them to get that confidence back, that they aren't going to be dumped, or they aren't going to be hit, or they aren't going to be abused, or they aren't going to be, shoved in a room with 50 other animals or whatever. And yet I have spoken to other animals who have shown me images of them, running away from something and then spending time out in the wild and learning to survive by themselves, and how they went looking for people. So it's a very, very different scenario. And I think I liken it to people. Some people, two different people can go through very similar situations, but come out of it differently. Some will come out stronger because they're natural born fighters, and they're like, yeah, we can do this, and I've learned from my experiences. And others will come out, bruised, and will need much longer to develop a sense of security and trust again. So it's,
so they're all different.
Sometimes it's sad. They are.
And is that something you can feel? You said that it's pretty much all the senses, the clairsenses. So one of the clairsenses is clairsentience, where we can actually feel the feelings.
Yes. Yeah. And that's one of, I don't want to say downsides to what I do, because obviously I think it's a very essential part of it. But when I first started, when you're kind of new and enthusiastic and you're like, yeah, I can talk to animals, and you kind of sit down and you're like, right, how does it feel? And then they show you and you go, oh, right, okay. And I have had some animals, and like I say, you learn to phrase the questions, don't you? You learn to phrase the questions differently so that you're not then putting yourself in a position where the animal kind of goes, well, you asked me what it felt like, to have urine burns on my feet because I was kept in a cage for, a year. But as a person, that's instinctively what you ask. Oh, no, how did that feel? And so you learn very quickly not to ask things like that. You perhaps ask, do you have anything left over from that you're still struggling with? And then they'll go, well, yeah, my feet are sore. And then I'll say, okay, well, why are your feet sore? What is the problem with your feet? And they say, well, it's burning because I had nowhere to pee. And then you get the question, and sometimes you'll get the feeling from that. You'll get the fear and the frustration. But sometimes you also get the physical sensation as well. So if I ask an animal, because I tend to also ask an animal if they're in any pain. So I do specify with my readings that I'm not a vet, obviously. But if an animal's able to say that they're in pain, then at least I can get back to the person and say, the animal's experiencing pain in their shoulder or their right hip or something, and it's a burning sensation or whatever. So as well as the feelings, as in the emotions, I can also do physical sensations as well. And that's helpful because I can say to the person, right, the animal has pain in their left shoulder, but it feels like a nervy sort of pain. It's got that kind of tingling, shooting sensation, or it feels muscular because it feels kind of stiff in this area rather than in the joint. So whilst I'm not diagnosing, I'm saying that the animal feels that sensation. So at least then when they go to the vet, they can say, right, okay, it's like a burning sensation. And that sometimes enables them to look at the specific treatment, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that also helps. Yeah, but I had one experience where I had to say to an animal, okay, thank you very much for showing me. You can have that back now. Because I was flipping sore. Yeah, shame. So, but, from the animal's perspective, I think it's nice for them to be able to, finally I can explain what this feels like. And, the person can stop rubbing my foot because it's not my foot that's the problem. It's, the bits above the foot or something. Yeah. So it does help in a way. Yeah.
Oh, it's so sad to think about the trauma that kind of imprints the animals, because generally they're so loving and so sweet. So let's change the subject and talk about the more fun aspects of your job. What are the bright and fun emotions that pets have?
I'm just trying to think of some examples. I had a fantastic chat with it was actually my best friend's cat. She was a case study for me before I went professional. And she had me in hysterics because I could absolutely picture this cat wearing a business suit. Just like if you think about like a very, very strict businesswoman, like a chief exec, who's got no time for time wasters, and she's there and you say what you have to say and she says what she has to say, and then, she moves on to the next thing. And she was hysterical to talk to because I'd had experience of so many kind of, loving, warm, gentle animals, and all of a sudden there was this like, right, what can I do for you? It's like, okay, well, my best friend, she's asked, yes, I know all that. What are your questions? Oh, okay. And it was so funny. But anyway, when we got to the one of the questions, I think one of the questions my friend asked was, what is there something that you don't like? So I immediately get this picture of a litter tray in my head. Now I know that she's like an outdoor cat most of the time, so she doesn't actually have a litter tray. they've got like a cat flap. So I remember thinking, why is she showing me this litter tray, And eventually I say to her, okay, what is it with the litter tray? What is it that you're trying to show me? So all of a sudden I get the focus on the contents of this litter tray. Okay, there's this pile of stuff in the middle of this litter tray. And I'm like, okay, so it's poop, right? Okay, so what is it with the poop? Anyway, so what it turned out to be was that she was trying to explain to me, and I had to do this by really dissecting the conversation because she was so businesslike. She didn't actually come out with what she was trying to say. And what it was is that at nighttime, my best friend and she has 3 dogs, as well as this cat, they all jump up onto the sofa, and that's their special treat. They all jump up into the sofa and they have cuddle time. But the dogs had really bad wind. And this cat would sit at the end of the sofa, and all of a sudden she would jump up because the smell that would emanate from the dogs obviously smelled like poop. So she was telling me what she didn't like was poop. And what I had to establish through some questions was it was the smell of poop that was coming from the dog's rear end, which was actually because they were breaking wind. It was hysterical. And because I'd had such like a formal chat with her, like I'd been interviewed by a chief exec kind of feeling to experience. It was just so funny. And, we got to the end of the conversation, and I always say, thank you very much for chatting. And she said, is that it? And I said, yes, thank you very much. And poof, conversation was gone. Like she disconnected and that was her done. She done her thing. So they do come up with some very, very funny stories. And I had one dog who told me that lovely question that the person asked. Can you tell us something that that we don't? It's quite an intriguing question. And this dog told me that it buried their slippers in the garden. And she was like, oh my God, I wondered where the slippers were going, and the dog was burying them in the garden. So it's just, they're wonderful, and they do come up with wonderful, wonderful things. There's a lot more to animals than meets the eye.
Yeah. I think I've had a number of cats, for instance, and they've all had such different personalities, but to think that you converse with them and their personalities shine through in that way to the point that it can just be like alarming and comical for you is so fun to think about.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. It really is. And it's wonderful to, because I'm a cat person too, and it's wonderful when you connect to the animal. You never know. It's like meeting a new person. You never know what it's going to be like, and it's exciting because you when you meet somebody for the first time and you get to know them and their view on life, it's interesting and it's intriguing and it's fun and it's stimulating and inspiring. And I always feel when I end the conversation that, I just feel like I've been uplifted in some way. It's like, oh my gosh, that creature over there, that little furball's actually got an opinion, or that little furball absolutely is so mischievous. He knows exactly what he's doing. And it really is wonderful. It really is wonderful.
They're such perceptive little creatures. So I imagine they've got lots of opinions on what goes on in the household and things around food and that kind of thing. But what about stuff that's human stuff, like TV shows or the stuff that they might absorb that we wouldn't think they understand? Have you been shown anything that you were shocked that the animal kind of understood and had an opinion about?
Oh, I can't think of anything offhand. I know that animals tend to label their people quite often. So I haven't come across not TV shows or anything like that. I'm just trying to think if there is anything similar. But no, quite often if there's 2 people in the house, just thinking of one animal in particular, who refers to his 2 mums as the soft one and the stern one. But was very quick to point out that they were equal. just different. It didn't mean that the soft one was better than the stern one. It's just he knew that he couldn't get away with being naughty with the stern one, but he knew he could get a couple of treats and extra cuddles with the soft one, So, but in answer to your question, none that I can think of right now. Sorry.
No, that's okay. It sounds like they're more concerned with what's going on in their sphere, and they don't need all the extra, pollution that we put into ours.
Yeah, true.
So how do pets see us then? I mean, you and I both expressed some discomfort in the word owner, and that we would much prefer to align with a term like guardian or protector or something like that. I actually shared on one of my social media accounts this week this beautiful video I found that was talking about that in Hawaii, in their language, they don't call pets the pets aren't their possessions, and they don't call them owner. They have a separate, unique word for that role, which was kahu, I think it was.
It's so funny you should say that, Natalie, because I have just seen that exact same video this week, and I actually saved a screenshot of it. Beautiful.
Yeah, and I've been given a lot of insight into that role, especially with the sheep recently, because the sheep are such precious little gentle, delicate creatures, and I really have started to understand why there's the role of the shepherd in relation to the sheep, and that's been a beautiful kind of unraveling for me. But I can see you really related to that beautiful video too, that's like a lost or a missing word from our language, that beautiful caretaker role in relation to an animal. How do the animals see us in regards to that kind of pet and owner relationship?
It's interesting actually, because this has been a big thing on my LinkedIn. Just recently, I did a poll. Just to go back slightly to how we call ourselves before I go on to what animals call us, because I'm also intrigued by this. There's a very big move to move away, from words such as owners. Although I've used the word owner my entire life, not because I feel sort of any possessiveness over the animal, but just because it's habit. It's just what we've always called ourselves. But I did a poll with people asking what they call themselves. Do they call themselves master? Oh my gosh, some people did vote for that. Owner, guardian, and then, other. And I invited them to comment in the comments with other terms. And it was incredible. I mean, I got loads and loads and loads of responses, and it was absolutely beautiful how people viewed themselves, to their animals. So guardian came up a lot. Mum and dad came up a lot. Caretaker came up a lot. There was another one, cardiovascular coach came up a lot, because this lady said, well, that's what my dog is. It forces me out every day to take it for a walk and make sure I get lots of exercise. I thought, oh, yeah, that's quite a good point. But of course, the flip side to this is what our animals call us. And I was having a chat with someone the other day about this, and how that was going to be kind of the next poll that I put out, because animals, it really depends on the relationship that they have with the people and what that person has provided for them. You know what I mean? So an animal has referred to its person as its rescuer, because the person did rescue it from a pretty dire situation. I'm just trying to think. There was one the other day that there was the soft one and the stern one, but they were a couple. I just can't think of it now. There was one the other day that I remember thinking, oh gosh, that's a bit unusual. Oh, there was one that I can't remember now if it was a cat or a dog that referred to its person as its light.
Oh,
which was really lovely, really lovely. But I mean, this animal had quite a tough background, and this person, they just felt like this person just provided it with with lightness, so as a light energetic feel, so lightness, so that it didn't feel so heavily burdened by what it had gone through, but also light, as in torchlight, as in showing the way. So that was actually quite lovely, and actually, and so many people have been asking about this that I'm wondering if I should include it, because I have a couple of set questions that I ask in addition to what people ask, and I thought maybe it might be quite nice to ask this now as a question with people, to the animal, what term would you use to describe your person? Because I think it would be quite interesting to see what different animals did. Yeah.
Oh, that would be so beautiful. I almost warned you that I'll probably cry when talking to you. But I didn't. Like, no, I won't, but I'm already going.
Oh.
So how do our pets communicate with us? Do they ever express frustration that they're trying to do that and we don't get it? How do they try to communicate with us?
It's funny you should say that, actually, because somebody I'm doing an interview on a blog, and that's one of the questions that the person asked yesterday as well about that was, do animals ever try to speak to their people, and are they frustrated because they can't? They're never frustrated. I never get a. I'm hesitating there because I have sometimes. I was going to say I never really get a negative emotion, not a negative emotion in that way, but frustration, not an angry frustration, but more frustration as. Let me give you an example, and then it'll make sense. So I spoke to a horse,
mm-hmm.
and owned by a lady, and this lady had quite low self-esteem, and this horse, the frustration that the horse was feeling was that he could see in her what she was and what she was capable of, but she couldn't. And his frustration was from a position of love, because it was almost like he was saying to her, you are so beautiful inside and you have so much to give, but you just can't see it. And he gave me this long spiel to relay back to her, which of course had her in floods of tears, because she could relate to where it was coming from. And I had no idea until the horse, gave me this message. So that frustration was coming purely from a position of love, in that he wanted her to know her worth, but she couldn't see it. So we had quite an emotional moment when we were doing the feedback from the session, as I was kind of reading out, not knowing the background, obviously, reading out what the horse was saying. She was in floods of tears. And it just goes to show, though, that the animals have a much deeper knowledge and understanding of us than perhaps even we do. So the frustration of not being able to communicate from animals comes from that, rather than from a, for heaven's sake, my person's not, I keep doing X, Y, Z and they still don't give me treats. It's often a lot deeper than we think. They know us better than we think they do.
Oh, that is so beautiful. I cried again.
Sorry, Natalie.
No, that's why I'm here to speak to you, because I love this. It's beautiful they see us on that soul level. And that's just, I think that's one of the reasons they're here, right? Like, do you have, after all this work that you've done with animals and being that conduit between the pet and the person, do you have a kind of sense of your own understanding of why animals are here, what role they play on this planet, and especially in relation to humans?
Yes. I get kind of two groups, if you like. One group which have a very, very deeply spiritual guiding aspect to them. I mean, I have had profound conversations with animals where I kind of think, my God, this is amazing. Animals that have, I spoke to an animal that chose to pass away just before the lady had a baby so that he could come back in spirit form when the lady had the baby, because he felt he was better able to be of use as an animal guide to her than he was as a physical cat in a household with a young baby. I mean, that is mind-blowing.
Wow.
That is absolutely mind-blowing. I mean, it is one of those where you're kind of writing it and you're thinking, no, man, this can't be. But there were all the signs, all the messages that he was giving me through this reading, plus all the signs that she was getting on her side, which she hadn't mentioned to me yet until we had the feedback. I mean, that's insane. I mean, it's one of those readings where you kind of sit and you go, wow. And I do get a few of those, which are incredible and mind-blowing and incredibly moving. I have a lot of animals that are there to help their people learn how to give and receive love. So there's a lot of that. So where people aren't comfortable perhaps receiving love, but they're okay with accepting headbutts from a cat. And, over time, they learn to accept that actually if a cat can love me and headbutt me, I am worthy of love. And then they learn to become more open to love from people. And so you might think, oh, gosh, okay, headbutts from a cat is a very small thing. But to some people, it's part of a much longer journey of learning to accept love on a physical level. And then you have other animals which aren't there to teach their people anything, but are there to learn from their people. And they are learning to trust, or they are learning to become confident in their ability to be worthy of love, or they are learning to, accept themselves as something that is valuable. So I think that was 3 groups. I said there were 2. I lied. They're 3. Yeah, but they all have their own kind of categories, if you like. There's the hugely profound, the some that are just teaching their people about something, and others which are there to learn their own lessons, really. And of course, sometimes I get taught lessons too. So I was chatting to a beautiful elderly Labrador, and because I'd had it was also early days, and because I'd had a few profound readings, you get lulled into this feeling that, oh gosh, every animal communication session is going to be profound, and wow, animals are all mind-blowing, and they are. But what I got taught in that lesson was that they're mind-blowing on different levels. So when I sat talking to this Labrador, I was all sort of geared up for, wow, golden Labrador. We all know the Labradors are the golden dog, and, wow, this is going to be amazing. And I got ready to take down this mind-blowing reading. And this Labrador told me that its whole purpose in life was to love its guardian to its absolute core of its heart. I know. Even when I say it now, I just think, my gosh, Colleen, why didn't you stop in your tracks? But I was like, yeah, okay. And because I was expecting this reading to be profound, and I naively wanted it to be profound, and that wasn't profound enough for me. And in my mind's eye, this Labrador kind of cocked her head and looked at me and said, that's it. And I was like, no, that can't be it. The person's paying for this reading. It has to be more than that. I mean, obviously, yes, we'd answered all the questions that they wanted to ask, but I wanted something mind-blowing. I said, there has to be more. That can't be it. And she just said, why? Why isn't that enough? Why isn't it enough that my person is my whole world, and that I love that person to the heart of my being? Why isn't that enough? And it kind of hit me, and I was like, oh God, I'm being chastised by a dog. And rightly so, because it was like, Why have I decided that that isn't valuable enough? And that's when I kind of realized that everything that an animal gives me is absolutely valuable in their eyes. Absolutely valuable. I can't decide, oh gosh, just because you've come back as an animal guide means you're better than just loving your person. Oh, terrible. So I squirmed so much in my seat. And thank goodness for the gentleness of Labradors, because she sat there and she just let me squirm. But I felt sufficiently embarrassed enough to apologize and say, yeah, okay, I'm sorry, I hadn't, and she was like, that's okay, but I'd learned my lesson. And now I go in a little bit more humble.
We can never have enough humility. And I think animals do bring that out of us, which is so beautiful.
Yeah. And they bring it out of us in such a gentle way. Yeah.
Do you think that, because I refer to my cat Bread as my soulmate, we have been through so much together, and I can't describe what a beautiful companion he is. And even through the most kind of tumultuous times of my more recent journey, he's always just stayed so calm and so this grounded force. So I feel like and I kind of believe in the idea of soul agreements, that all the people and animals, for that matter, who are important to us, we kind of know we're going to encounter them when we incarnate here. But is that something that you believe in, or that you've gained insight into, the kind of soul evolution of our pets, and if we're kind of destined to connect with them on the earthly plane?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. When I've spoken to animals, particularly the ones where, so I believe, and I've come across in my readings, that animals have multiple lifetimes, and the animals that have had multiple lifetimes are the ones that come with the profound wisdom, because obviously they have all those lifetimes of wisdom and experience to tap into. And those specific animals are aware of those lifetimes, and they are aware of what they've learned in those lifetimes, and they share those messages. And it's quite often those animals that come through and say that they were with that person in a previous lifetime. Maybe not as a cat. Maybe your cat was with you in another lifetime, but you were a man and it was a dog. It comes in a different form, but because you have that bond, you have that link, somehow in each lifetime you will find each other in a different way, because for some reason you are bonded, and you're bonded for a reason. And like you say, a soul agreement, I like that term. I haven't actually come across that term. I've come across soulmates and those, but I like that term, soul agreement. And you have animals that sometimes I have animals when I've spoken to them that have passed or are preparing to pass, hint at the fact that they will come back, and they will come back as something to either continue their relationship with the person in this lifetime, or that they will come back in a later lifetime. And I think that just shows that there is some sort of link. We might not know the reason for that link, other than it's there, and it's pretty damn fine.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. One thing that I've wondered about Bread, so my journey with Bread, he's a little Selkirk Rex cat that I rescued from a pretty shabby breeder who, the threats they do, that if you don't take them that day, that they're going to put them down and all sorts of nasty stuff. Yeah, I saw a picture of him, and he didn't really have a name or anything like that. He was just kind of used for breeding, and he didn't have the right kind of appearance or structure, so he was kind of useless to them. And I just saw a picture of him, and I'm like, no matter what happens, I'm going to take him from this lady, because he's not supposed to be there. And even if I'm not his person, I'll find the person who is. And it turns out I was his person, so I was pretty happy about that. But he's had lots of health issues. So he always, and I think the breeder knew that he had a heart defect, for instance, and didn't want to deal with that, because she didn't tell me about it when she gave him to me. But pretty soon after I got him, he had heart failure and had essentially a heart attack. And I happened to just be late for work that morning and was there watching what happened and was there to take him to the...
You just happened to be late for work. Isn't it funny how the universe works, Natalie?
Yeah. It absolutely is. And he managed to live through that. We got him on the correct medication. But a couple of years ago, I think it was just before COVID, so lucky it happened just before COVID, that he ended up having, his heart issues are kind of managed and he's doing pretty well with those at that point. But he had this growth in his chest and we were kind of given the option, look, this is going to be an expensive procedure. There's no guarantee that he's going to survive it. It's up to you what we do. And, it was thankfully we did decide to go through with the procedure, and it went so smoothly. And this growth that was in his chest cavity came out just like this beautiful, easy, smooth capsule. It was incredible how it was described. And interestingly, when that was happening, the nicest place for us to go while the operation was happening was this convent, an old convent that has like cafes and stuff now and a garden. But my partner and I went to the convent and sat in the convent grounds doing meditation, and he was doing these visualizations of this capsule in his chest just being elevated, like with kind of the hand of God pulled out gently and everything going smoothly. And it's exactly what happened. But the recovery was quite difficult. He had a feeding tube, and it was obviously very painful. Yeah, and it lasted a number of weeks, his healing journey. And obviously, I've always wondered, I hope he understands that we're doing this for his greatest good, that we're not wanting to torture him with this pain. Do the pets know when they have to go through something like a vet procedure or a surgery and there's this, pain involved and this recovery that's difficult? Do they understand that we're doing it for their good?
Absolutely, they do. Absolutely. When you were saying about him having the recovery, with the feeding tube, all that I was getting from that was an incredible feeling of love. And I think what happens is when you're caring for an animal, the energy and the vibes that you are giving off are all about love. They're all about love and care and concern. And those vibes can be felt by the animal. So the animal knows that what they're going through is because you love and you care for them, because they can feel it coming off you. Conversely, when you're anxious and upset and angry, they can also feel those, which is why animals tend to hide if people are having an argument, or it's not so much the noise, it's just because the vibes are coming off. So yes, absolutely. What I try to do for people who have animals that are going in for vet appointments or for treatments or operations is I connect with the animal beforehand and I explain to them in visual terms. And so I'll get the deal from the people. Okay, what's going to happen? Will they get put in a cat carrier? They'll get put in a car. They'll get taken to the vet. This is the procedure. They'll be in the vet for 2 nights with recovery, in your cat's case with a feeding tube. So then I would connect with the animal and I would explain and I would visualize. But the whole time I would visualize the people alongside it, having this love and this concern and perhaps sort of cradling the animal, close to them to show that they have love and concern. And then I would explain as much as I could anyway, that yes, you will be given a liquid, you will get sleepy, you will wake up, you will feel pain, but it's okay. It's all part of the journey. It will get better. Your people will come and collect you. You'll be at home. You will feel uncomfortable. You will have a feeding tube here, and here, or whatever, but it's okay. You're safe. You're loved. You will be cared for. And, quite often, when people go through something scary, it's often the surprise of it and the not knowing what's going to happen that fills us with fear. I don't know about you, like if I go to the dentist, I always say to the dentist, tell me what's going to happen before you do it, so that I can prepare myself. And it's the same with animals. So a combination of them knowing what's going to happen with the vet appointment, alongside with knowing and feeling the care and the love that's coming energetically off their people, that sometimes can provide a more comfortable experience for the animal. I mean, obviously I can't take the pain away. I'd love to be able to take the pain away. But, we can't do everything. But yes, in answer to your question, they absolutely can feel it. Yes. Yes. And it does make a difference to them. It does make a difference to them. Just on a flip side as well, you might be coming to this, I don't know, but when animals are about to pass, quite often I get requests from them, because I part of what I do is offer services to animals that are about to pass so that I can, relay messages in that last minute for people before the animal passes or gets put to sleep. And one of the things that I request is for their people to be there, to be holding them, supporting them so that they can feel that love energetically from that people. So I think that's also an answer to your question, that they absolutely can. Even though people are grieving and obviously very distressed in that moment, they can still feel the love, and they quite often ask for it specifically. Yeah.
Oh, that's so.
I don't know if you might be into that later, but that's a whole nother ballgame.
I have been in that position with some of my animals. I've had a cat be euthanized in my arms, my cat that I had for quite a long time, and even a chicken recently that wasn't doing well. We had to take her in, and we didn't have a bond like I did with my cat of 7 years, but I thought it was a very important job for me to sit there and soothe her while that process was taking place. So I think it's an important role of being that kahu, that we're there to give them that comfort and be present with them at that time, because they give us so much.
Yeah, that's very, very true. In that moment, you were giving them the value, aren't you? And it is. Yeah, it's hard, and I know not everybody's comfortable with it, so it's not a criticism for those who can't be with the animals. I do know some people have chosen not to be, and I imagine that's a very difficult choice. But yeah, the animals that I've spoken to in my experience have asked for their people to be with them, and in those cases, the people have managed to do it. So it's worked out. Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to ask a difficult question now. We find it easier, I think, a lot of the time, and also probably more humane to euthanize our pets when we obviously know there's something wrong and that they might be suffering. How do the pets feel about that?
Curiously, the message I get most often is that they trust that the people will make the right decision when it is required. I've never had experience of an animal going, "Oh, I could have lost it another 3 days." I think that they know that people will always, they know that caring owners, because let's not make a huge generalization, but caring owners will always make the right decision for their pet, for their animal in that moment. Yes, it's sometimes a question. I'm just trying to think. I had it recently where the people were thinking about putting their animal down. This was quite mind blowing. They were thinking about putting the animal down because the animal had deteriorated to such an extent, and the animal was like, "No." And I was like, "What?" And the animal was like, no, I'm not ready to go yet. When I can't do, and then proceeded to list me 2 or 3 things that they would not be able to do. And when that happened, then they would be ready. And literally this was a Saturday, and the people had contacted me to do an emergency reading for the animal because the vet was coming out on the Sunday to put this animal to sleep. And I got back to the people and I was like, your dog's not ready. And they were like, what? And I was like, oh, he's not ready. He's not ready. He's told me he's not ready. And they were like, no, but the vet's coming tomorrow. And I was like, well, please don't put your dog to sleep because he's not ready. And you're kind of in that moment where you're thinking, oh my God. And thankfully, when they read the whole reading through, they thought, okay, well, at the moment he can do those XYZ things that he'd listed. So let's give him the benefits of the doubt and not put him to sleep and wait until he can't do those things. And I'm very pleased to say that was March and it's now June and he's still going. That's frightening. Yeah. So, and they sometimes they know. Like this particular dog was very, very confident. Yes, he was ill. Don't get me wrong. He's not running around like a puppy now. He is struggling and he is deteriorating. But very often other animals are very much of, yes, I'm ready. And then they will specify, actually, I'd rather prefer to die at home, or I'd prefer to die at home in your arms. And one animal was very specific that he wanted both his people touching him at that moment. And other animals are very much like, no, actually, I would like help. And I'm happy when you think the time is right for you to make that decision for me. Hugely emotional readings, those are hugely emotional, because animals speak very, very, I want to say matter-of-factly, but it's a little bit gentler than that. We have so much baggage and emotion attached to death, don't we? Because there's so much of the material and physical world that we are connected with. And yet animals, even though they have the emotional link to the people that they've built bonds with, they're very much like, well, this is just the next step and I'm ready for it. And that can be quite difficult to deal with, because you're like, but you're going to die. And they're like, yeah, but so are you. It's like speaking to a higher being who understands a much bigger picture than perhaps we do.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. Yeah. And you reflected on what it feels like for you, that they're highly emotional, I guess, for everyone involved, because, and just hearing about it third hand, I don't know the animals or the pet parents, but it's making me emotional. What kind of toll does that take on you? Or how do you process and integrate the information you get from the animals?
When I first started professionally, I always throw myself very enthusiastically into everything I do. And that worked for all my previous jobs. I am learning to tread very carefully with this, because being an energy work, I hadn't fully appreciated really just how much I need to look after myself in between readings. And when I started professionally, I was like, right, I could probably squeeze in, 4 or 5 readings a day. And, and the analytical side of me is going, great, I can help all these people and it's going to be amazing. And, I can bring comfort there, and, that animal can be fed. And yes, that I relish that, but it just is not possible. I will do 3 readings a day if there's an emergency, and I will make time for it. I have, an emergency this afternoon that I'm having to do a reading for. But other than that, I will do 2 a day max, because I have to prepare myself energetically and also protect myself energetically, because as much as I like to relate to the animal and be open to what it's feeling, I can't put myself through that day in, day out, because it's exhausting, And I have to be very strict about having that downtime and coming out of the readings and disconnecting, and the energy cleansing that I have to go through after that. And also, I did get asked the other day, what do you do when an animal client dies? Because obviously I'm speaking to animals that are about to transition, and then, I'm in contact with the people and they let me know. And I always do a little ritual for them. I always light a candle and I put some crystals out and I wish them a safe journey. And 9 times out of 10, I cry, because the soul's passed, and of course that is hard. It is hard, but I would much rather be that person than a person that goes, right, good, I've booked another client and I've made another buck, because that's not what this is about. So I think I would rather keep it smaller and more personal, and just try and be more disciplined about looking after myself energetically.
I'm sure all the animals and people that work with you appreciate that about you too, that they value that over another communicator or channel or conduit who might be all about the money.
Yeah. I would hope so.
Oh, I have a few more questions before we finish up that I'm just curious about. So being on the farm, that I see differences in the different species of animal. And I've heard you talk about cats, about dogs, about horses. Are there any things that stand out about each of those species that is kind of common to them?
No, and this is also something that the lady who I'm asking questions for her blog post, funny enough, also asked that same question. Did I notice any differences between species? And I really wanted to say yes. I can remember being really excited to talk to my first horse, because horses are magical creatures. And I've spoken to so many dogs and so many cats, and I thought, a horse, this is amazing. And to be fair, that first horse that I spoke to, he was quite it was actually a horse in spirit, and he was quite a character. But when I spoke to the next horse after that, I realized that that first horse wasn't symbolic of what horses are like in general. It was just his character. So far for me, I haven't noticed that, oh gosh, that's a very specific cat feel, or that's a very specific dog feel. For me, they're all animals, and it's their personalities that jump out. I guess much like people, you can have sort of American people, European people, Chinese people. They're all people, but they have their differences, depending on their cultures and their upbringings. And it's the same with animals. I've spoken to some cats which are very laid back and very chilled, or I've spoken to like the business lady cats. It's the same with dogs. I've spoken to some that, are 16 years old, which come across like puppies in the reading. And I've spoken to the Labrador, who was very gentle with chastising me. So, there's a whole host of differences, but I haven't noticed specific species characteristics. Saying that, I've not spoken to sheep or cows yet. although I know we do have cows in the field next to us here in rural France, and I often go and speak to them. but that's more of a over the fence kind of checking in on them and seeing how they're going. I have spoken to a bunny. But I'd love to experience more species, because I'm curious whether domesticated animals have a different feel to perhaps wild animals. So I know we do get a few wild animals here, but I would like to be able to position myself somewhere where I'm not scaring them and they're not scaring me, where I can say, "Hi, my name's Colleen. I'm an animal communicator. Do you fancy a chat?"
Yeah. So taking it to that next level of Dr. Dolittle communication.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like that. I can give you some insight into the cows. Unique. They're unique because I watch them communicate with each other, and they seem very telepathic. They don't moo at each other very much, but I watch them, and I have had some instances where it's usually I'm concerned about where one of them might be, because a sheep is missing. So I've got like 7 mostly mini sheep. So they're not huge big beasts, but they've all got their different personalities, and something that's common with all of them, a few of them in particular that I think have an energy that's perhaps more like closer in vibration, like vibrational resonance to mine, perhaps, that I'm able to kind of connect with a bit more deeply. But when I've been worried about a particular cow, I'll ask one of the ones that I feel connected to, where is, so the cow Wally went missing. Or I'd be like, "Where's Wally? Show me Wally." And I'll watch them with their heads interacting with each other. And then a few minutes later, Wally appears behind a building.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and I will be doing that in my head. I won't be even talking. I'll be projecting images to them through my own mind's eye, and seeing how they respond. And it's not something I rely on or can do like every time I'm with them, but I've definitely had that experience, and really do feel like I observe often their communication, their telepathic communication with each other.
Yeah. That's brilliant. I mean, that's exactly how you would do it. But it's interesting to watch their reaction, because, the majority of the work that I do is done using a photograph online. So I'm not interacting with the animal. So it's interesting hearing you say, you're there with the cows, and obviously you can actually see how they're now interacting with each other after you've presented that image to them. That's fascinating. I love that. I'm going to go and look for the cows in the field this afternoon.
I love that. Another trick with them, they often really like when you sing to them. So, yeah.
Really?
Yeah. See how they respond.
That's lovely.
Yep.
Oh my gosh, I hope no one drives past the house today. There's going to be like that mad English lady singing to the cows in the field next door.
I
love that.
I'd love to hear what comes of your connection with the cows, because I'm also interested in that. And that was a question for me about like you connecting with wild animals, and if animals ever just come up to you and seek out connection with you.
No, but how I said earlier on when you asked me if I connected to the animal connects to me, and I said, one's happening a bit more recently. So what used to happen is that I would make that I had the framework of connecting to the animal. And what's happening now recently, and perhaps it's coming because obviously the more I do this, my energetic links, my intuition becomes stronger. I'm now having it like this afternoon when I'm wanting to talk to this particular cat. I was thinking about it this morning going, oh gosh, I'm going to connect to that cat this afternoon. And I got something immediately from the cat. And I remember thinking, oh gosh, that's unusual, because normally I would have like this formal process, if you like, of connecting to the animal. So it's interesting now that the animal, perhaps because I've connected with it prior, it feels like it can do that. But yeah, I think maybe with the cows, I might sort of go approach the field and kind of just sit there with that energetic receptive feeling and just see if they connect with me. If they go, hi, are you going to speak to us?
I hope they do, and I'd love to hear about it when you do that.
I will keep you posted. My husband's going to love that. He loves what I do. He's very supportive, and I'm going to go downstairs and say, I'm off to sing with the cows. He's going to be like, okay.
That's beautiful. I've so enjoyed this chat, Colleen. I've just got one more question for you before we finish up.
Okay.
Is there something that the pets collectively all wish that we all knew? You spoke about some of that deep wisdom that's been shared with you so far, but is there any like big lesson or common theme that they wish humans in general understood?
No, I mean there's common themes about what makes them happy. Which are things like a feeling of safety and security, and not being in an environment that surprises them. So in other words, being in an environment that they're able to trust, where they know where things are and what's happening. I know I can certainly say that animals trust us more than we also give them credit for, because they understand us on a much deeper level than we realize. And I think that animals also love us on a much deeper level. We love animals and express love to animals much like we do to people. By telling them we love them and, stroking them or patting them on the head or whatever. Not that I do that with my husband, but, but you know what I mean, though. The way that people show love is very similar to animals as to people, as animals as to people. But the love that animals have for us is on such a deep level. It's not just a superficial, great, I get treats, they give me a warm bed, they stroke me, pat me on the head. They love us on an energetic level. And that comes across with how they describe the love, how they describe the the links that they have with people, how they view people, what they see around people. And I think that if we allowed ourselves to be more open to that and more understanding and receptive of the type of love that animals have to give to us, I really think that we could learn a lot. We could learn a lot about ourselves, our hearts, and certainly our spirits on a much deeper level. Yeah.
And is there anything that people with pets listening right now should go and do after they have stopped crying while they're on the road? Like, is there something they can do that with their pets, like right now, that would just make their pets really happy?
I would say when you express love for your animal, don't just say it. Imagine your whole body and all your senses feeling that love, because bearing in mind, animals are receptive to all those different energy levels. So when you tell your animal you love it, feel it in your heart, experience it in your whole body. Know in that moment when you're expressing love, how does your whole body feel? And immerse yourself in that when you tell your animal you love it, because that animal will feel that, and it will feel different to, hey, Spot, Mummy loves you lots. All right. So when you're just expressing the words compared to when you're feeling it with your whole body and really connect with the animal on all those levels, and you will notice a difference, because the animal won't be just like receiving it on a vocal basis with the energy. It will be receiving the whole package, and it will be a much deeper way. And then judge the animal's reaction. You know, it might kind of act differently to what it usually does, but that's because it's going to pick up a change, and just see how you go with that. But they'll notice the difference. That is like being hugged energetically.
That is so beautiful. We're giving them like a full auric body hug.
And that's exactly right. Yeah, how great, right?
Oh, that's precious. That is so cool. Thank you, Colleen. Now, before we finish up, if you could, I'm sure everyone listening with a pet will want to work with you. If you could tell us about the services you provide and how we can get in contact with you.
Okie dokie. Well, I have a website. It's www.authenticpathways.net. And I offer packages depending on what it is that you want to know, and also how many animals you have. So I have an individual session as well, obviously, but I find that sometimes people with, 2 animals say, oh, do you just discount if you've got 2 animals rather than buying 2 individual sessions? So I introduced packages. So there's a 2-pack, a 3-pack, and a 4-pack. And these packages also help when we are trying to understand or perhaps tweak a behavior of an animal. Sometimes it's helpful to have multiple sessions. So one where we listen to the animal and its concerns and its fears, and then another one where we present, alternative ideas of how it needs to behave, what behavior is acceptable, et cetera, and then how we can check on it at a later stage, or perhaps checking in with an animal before it goes to the vet, and then checking in with it afterwards. So the packages are there to allow for those types of things. Email address is colleen@authenticpathways.net. And my social media of choice really is LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn, but it is Colleen Kersey. But I'm also available on Facebook, so Colleen Kersey on Facebook. And I'm always up for chatting about animals. So,
oh, Colleen, I've watched some of the videos you've shared on Facebook, and they're fantastic. For those who are on Facebook and LinkedIn, I definitely encourage you to follow Colleen, because the animal wisdom you share, those little kind of bite-sized sharings are so amazing.
Oh, brilliant. I'm glad you're enjoying them.
Yeah.
great.
Oh, thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure to speak with you, and I'm so glad that the animals have you on their team.
You're very welcome, and thank you. Thank you for your kind words, Natalie. Thank you. It's been great. It's been good fun.
How amazing was that? I had such a good time chatting with Colleen, and my mind was blown more than once in that conversation by the profound wisdom that these beautiful little creatures hold. I hope that you enjoyed this chat, and I'm sorry if you needed the tissues during it. You probably heard me sniffling a bit in the conversation because I'm someone who is deeply touched by anything to do with the Rainbow Bridge, and just the sweet nature of our pets in general. It doesn't take much to get the tears flowing, and I did try to put a little disclaimer in the intro about that. However, the words didn't come, and I think it was because some of us might have needed a bit of a cry. I know when I was editing the episode, it felt quite cathartic to have some release, and that's just another beautiful gift that Colleen has been able to share with us from the animals. They definitely know what we need in any given moment, and anyone with a cat or a dog for that matter will understand what I'm talking about, because in those moments when we're really seeking comfort, we can always count on our beautiful pets. They're always there for us, and they teach us so much about unconditional love. That beautiful Labrador and its unconditional love was just so touching. So I hope that you enjoyed that as much as I did, and check out Colleen. Definitely follow her on Facebook and LinkedIn. I'll be back soon with some more interviews. I've got a few lined up for you, so stay tuned for the next episode. Until then, connect with me on Instagram at The Initiates Podcast or via my website, theinitiatespodcast.com. Until next time, friends, I wish you peace. I wish you beautiful unconditional love, and I wish you the cutest puppy and kitty cuddles. Bye-bye, my friends.